Thanks, Maddie. All right. All right, now for something a little bit different. I'm going to be reading the first chapter of a book that I hope is going to be published by the end of this year. A couple months ago, I read a chapter regarding my adventures going to Watkins Glen in 1973, 50 years ago. Tonight I'm going to read the first chapter that occurs in 1967, November of 1967. I'm 13 years old. Crooking a deer. Huddled in the cramped, way back cargo area of our station wagon, I was with my grandpa Bill, Uncle Tom, my dad, Ned, and two older guys I didn't know yet. Our gear and all six of us were stuffed akimbo into our 1964 Country Squire. All of my gear and most of the other men's was on my lap. I am stuffed in a tight space like an afterthought. It was a typical cold New York fall, Indian summer days changing to Arctic nights. The back of the car was so cold that breathing fogged my glasses with every breath. Someone owned a hunting cabin in the Adirondack Mountains in northern New York. We're on our way. I had never hunted or camped before. All of the men had their hunting beards growing. I had yet to shave. I'm 13 years old. I barely have pubes. In the afternoon, we stopped for beer, ice, and lunch at Ham's Inn on Route 56 in Seavy's Corners. Mr. Ham Ferry, skinny, balding on top, big ears, small chin, wearing wire-rimmed glasses, was a grizzled old man who sang songs and told stories about the Adirondack Mountains. My grandfather knew him. They chatted as I sat near the wood stove on a tall, hard stool with my elbows on the etched and scarred Chicago railed bar. I kept quiet, nursing a nickel bottle of Royal Crown soda while nibbling a $1 meat sandwich. When he served my sandwich, Mr. Ferry called me young blood, tousling my crew-cut hair. He asked, "Are you a killer, son? You gonna get yourself a deer this weekend?" Blushing, I looked at my dad. He was smiling. I became engrossed listening to Mr. Ferry's tales of lumberjacking, North Country snowstorms, and spring floods. The big room was filled with deer and moose heads, antlers, and a stuffed beaver being looked at evilly by a giant stuffed mountain lion. As soon as we got to the camp, I had a shit. My dad handed me a spade shovel telling me, "Go over by that maple. The roots are deeper. Dig a hole 2 feet deep and don't lose the dirt. Pile it up a few feet from the tree. We'll use that hole for our toilet. Here, grab that toilet paper and leave it over there, off the ground, on a branch or something." The ground was frozen, hard as a rock. Gratefully, that frost only went an inch or two deep. Lower, it was soft gravel and sand. I had spent the summer with my dad digging a new septic tank system by our house, so I was good with a shovel. By with my dad, I meant with my dad watching me. Shoveling was easy for me. I was feeling urgent about shitting, so I got done and I did. Having accomplished all that in 15 minutes, I called my dad over to show him my work. "That's good. Why did you square the corners? Asses are round. Hey, after wiping yourself, wash your hands with sand from over there." He pointed to the pile I had excavated. "Don't use soap. The deer can smell soap from far away. Cover your crap with some soil there. We'll fill the hole in when we leave." I could not help myself. "By we, you mean me, right?" He surveyed the camp. "Done," he proclaimed. "Yup, it's you. This is going to be a lot of fun. Keep your ears on and your eyes open." He rubbed my Elmer Fudd cap and hooked an arm solidly around my shoulder, walking me back to the tent. Eventually, we were sitting around the rock-green campfire on short birch log stumps, the kind with white mushrooms growing out of the sides and ends. Mr. Charlie called it a bonfire. Uncle Tom showed me how to scrape the white mushroom caps and bark scraps with a sharp hatchet edge to use them for kindling. They'll flare up orange if you throw them in the fire. He told me to whack the hatchet into a log to protect the edge from rusting overnight. One of the other men pulled out 2 rolls of tape, bright orange. The tape was not sticky, Mr. Wickstead explained to me that we will use the tape as we patrol the woods, tearing pieces and tying them to trees. He tossed one roll to me to examine. "It'll be your job, boy," he stated. In the light of the waning moon, with the right side getting darker every day, I examined the tape and said, "It's stretchy and a little hard to tear." "Yeah," the man said, "so it won't come off the tree easy." The older guys were drinking beer, eating pretzel sticks, smoking cigars and cigarettes. They threw the butts into the fire as they recounted past hunting and fishing trips. The tone is serious. Apparently a 6-pointer could provide a lot of meat for a family that could last throughout the winter. Wait, we kill the deer and eat it? I didn't know that. I thought we only shot them. My dad smirked at me as the men guffawed. I was too embarrassed to ask him what a 6-pointer meant. The shelter was a thick canvas tent set on a square 15-foot wide pine plank platform, 2 feet off the ground, accessible by one step. Actually, the step was a fat log split in half with the flat side up. Rocks held it in place, though it wobbled when someone stepped on it. The canvas was draped over the platform edges, making sure the floor stayed dry. There was a thick cedar center pole about 15 feet high, supporting the peak of the tent. Wood pegs were drilled at an angle into the pole for hanging shirts, jackets, and one of the gas lights. Most, but not all, of the bark was missing from the pole. Metal tubes held the tent sides and were tied with thick strings to the canvas interior. The inside was lit by candles. A fuel light with a fuel stove sat on a rickety card table. No chairs, simple log ends for comfort. There was a mustiness in the tent that I'd never smelled before. I liked it. There were 7 metal-legged bunk bed cots lying near the cast iron wood stove. A black metal stovepipe extended, angling through the tarp wall. There was a wide, rusting piece of sheet metal riveted to the tent side to keep the pipe from catching the canvas on fire. I spoke as the heat of the campfire warmed my face. "How soon will we go hunting tomorrow morning?" Grandpa replied, "You can't go hunting until you crook the deer." "Huh? What?" I took off my glasses and mindlessly cleaned them with the bottom of a t-shirt that I had taken from under my red plaid wool jacket. I realized everyone had eyeglasses. I could see the fire's reflection in all of them. Uncle Tom butted in, wagging his 3-fingered left hand, a victim of a tannerite accident many years ago. "Yeah, you have to crook a deer before you can shoot one. That's the manly way to hunt." Grandpa cut in. "You need to go out tonight. You have to find a deer and make your way up to the back side of it. Sneak up on it really quiet-like. Get right up to its ass. When you're there, lift the tail up with your left hand and jam your right index finger right into its ass. Then crook your finger." He demonstrated, turning his index finger at a right angle at the middle knuckle, like he was shooting a pistol. "So it can't run away." He paused to let that sink in, and then continued. "After a few seconds, let the deer go. Come back here and let us smell your finger, so we know if you did it or not. Then you're a man, and you can shoot a deer with a rifle. And don't stick your finger up your own ass. A deer ass smells different. We will know the difference." I was stunned. I'd never heard of that before. Everyone had a serious face. They were looking at me intently. I thought, okay, I can do that. Eventually, we began assembling for bed, but not me. I was wearing wool, red and black plaid, Elmer Fudd jacket, matching hat, and wool pants hung off of tight suspenders. This is an official hunter's suit. Mine was a size or too large so that I could grow into it. The pants were too long, the bottoms bunched up on my leather hiking boots. Under the jacket were 3 thermal t-shirts. I slid on insulated leather gloves. Sadly, the extra length of the coat arms put up a fight. I took a flashlight and one of the rolls of orange tape. Discreetly, I eased my way out of camp and was walking, calling out to no one in particular, "Gonna take a crap and go crook a deer. Be back in the morning with a stinky finger for you all." My dad, along with everyone, laughed and said, "Good luck with that, boy." He did not take me seriously. Mr. Wickstead chimed in, "That boy shits a lot." I spent the entire partially moonlit night walking around the woods, referencing the moon for directions, watching landscape items, rocks, trees, ravines, hilltops, and so on. I got sidetracked a few times, but kept finding my way back to landmarks by using the orange tape around the trees. I never saw a deer. Eventually, the darkness broke. The light came. I headed to camp, dejected, feeling like a failure. I was hungry, thirsty, and disappointed. Breathing hard fogged my glasses. I could barely see half of the time. On the other hand, I spent the entire night outside. I didn't get lost. I didn't get scared. I felt a purpose that was impossible to understand at that age. On my way back to camp, I crossed a narrow creek. My feet were drenched. I was getting a couple of blisters. My feet, face, and hands were freezing, but everything else was surprisingly warm. Wool keeps me warm. Who knew? There has to be better outdoor foot and hand gear than this, though, or am I a wimp? I don't know that yet. I'm only 13 years old. Downstream, I noticed a dog plodding along the manky, slide-topped creekside. No, wait, that's a coyote. Haggard, matted back fur and pointy ears. It was digging with its front paws along the side of the slow-moving creek that was mostly covered with ice. It popped its head toward me, stared, flared its nostrils. Looked around and eased its way backward up a slope. Its ears rotated like a curious horse's. It kept its glowing yellow eyes on me the entire time. I returned to the camp as the sun was beginning to break. My dad and grandpa were cooking bacon and coffee in the fire pit. They looked at me. I was disheveled, damp, and tired. "Where the hell you been all night? We were worried sick about you. We were just about to go get a forest ranger," Grandpa chirped with a wry smile. "Trying to cook a deer." "Couldn't find one," I said. My dad and grandpa practically fell over laughing, calling out to the others to come see the heroic hunter. After a few minutes of laughing and ball-busting mockery, they let me in on the joke. Uncle Tom said derisively, "No one can sneak up on a deer and stick their finger in its ass and catch it that way, you dumbass." Grandpa chipped in his 2 cents. "You got any idea what to do if you got lost?" Knowing a good answer, I didn't ignore him. I kicked at the ground, fluffing some icy snow. "Well, I know at the bottom of every hill there's water somewhere. Might gotta look for it. Once I do, follow that water. It'll lead to more water, eventually to a river. By then I'll be seeing houses and buildings." Uncle Tom was stumped, saying nothing. He licked his lips as he smirked at me. "Plus, I used that colored tape you told me about," I said as I held up the leftover roll and all the pieces I took off the trees on the way back. Actually, that was the easiest part of the night for me. The men were too focused on laughing at me to realize how clever I had been. Fuckers, I thought. I didn't know what that word meant. My dad always called the Yankees that name when he was mad at them for losing baseball games. None of us shot or even saw a deer on that trip. The borrowed rifle I was to use never even got fired. Crooking a deer became a challenge to me. They said I couldn't do it. Someday I will. For now, the excitement of shooting a rifle and my night in the cold woods was my trophy. "Pa, can I at least shoot the rifle, so I can see what it feels like?" "Sure, son, blast them all at that target board there." I missed the plywood on every 30-yard shot. The first shot rocked me back. I lost control of the rifle. By the last shot, I had the stock nestled into my shoulder, my arms in the right positions, and my right trigger finger pulling smoothly. My dad commanded me, "Now go fill in that shithole and clean up around it. We got to get the hell out of Dodge." I'm not even mad. I know that I'm becoming a man. "Sure, Pa." Crooking a deer became a challenge to me. They said I couldn't do it. Someday I will. For now, the excitement of shooting a rifle and my night stalking in the cold woods was my trophy.